There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another original tag. It's been a while since I've done an original tag, and this one just kind of came to me the other day through one of my interviewees for my new series, Bite-Sized Book Chats. I'll put a link to the playlist for the Bite-Sized Book Chats, but it was just a conversation I had with one of my guests on there, Paul, during which I learned that he is now the co-host for a bookish podcast, the Mookse and the Grapes podcast. Now, if you read literary fiction, and if not, why don't you? You have probably heard of the Mookse and the Grapes website. I was first introduced to it from Peg the Book Prize Addict. I think she's got a new name for her channel now, but I don't remember what it is. And it is a book review site. They sponsor book readings, group readings of books, and they'd have book reviews, and I think they're now starting to do movie reviews. And that whole fabulous endeavor was founded by Trevor, and he used to have a book podcast. I didn't know anything about this, but he did, and then he let it go, and he has restarted. He has resuscitated the Mookse and the Grapes book podcast with his buddy Paul, and Paul was a guest on my Bite-Sized Book Chats, and that gave me the idea to create the Mookse and the Grapes bucket list book tag. It's a mouthful, and I'm going to ask any of you that do it, I'm going to tag a whole swack of yous. I'm going to ask all of you to make sure to use the full title, please, because part of my purpose in doing this is to promote this new book podcast, or this resuscitated book podcast, the Mookse and the Grapes podcast. You don't have to pretend to love book podcasts if you're not interested in them, but please preserve the wording of the full title and put the little bit of information, copy and paste it from my show notes into yours, and your job is done. But if you, I'd recommend that you check out this newly resuscitated book podcast, because I think you'll enjoy it. And their debut episode was about bucket lists, book bucket lists, and Trevor and Paul compared notes about what books were on their bucket list. So we all know what a bucket list is. So I thought that would make a great tag, and I did some research, and nobody seems to have done a bucket list book tag for a number of years. So here we are, and here we go. The premise is very simple. I'm going to tell you about 10 books that are on my bucket list. And my conception of a bucket list is books that I will get to someday, that I want to get to before I die, before I shuffle off this mortal coil. But by definition, those are books that that wouldn't show up on the mid-year book freakout tag. Like, I'm not going to get to them this year. I might try one or two next year, wait for that part of the optional part of this tag. But, you know, in the fullness of time type of books. So that's what I'm inviting any of you that I tag, or any of you watching this tag. Of course it's an open tag. I can't tag all of you, but I'm tagging all of you this way, by opening it up for anybody to take part. Tell us about 10 books that you would like to read before you kick the bucket. So I'm going to give you mine. I'm not going to make a big long explanation for any of them. Most of them are pretty famous. But let me tell you how I picked them, because there's a lot of white guys, especially dead white guys, on this list, and it's because they are at the bottom of my list in terms of what's urgent for me to read, because, you know, let's face it, white men are passé. I'm including myself in that list of passé white men, but, you know, a few of them wrote one or two good books, and so these are ones that, no, I have no interest in getting to them anytime soon, but I should read them. It's not only that I should, but I want to. So that doesn't mean that you're going to choose a similar kind of list. Your books might all be sci-fi, or, you know, gooseberries or whatever. Anything is fine. It's what you would like to get to in your TBR, but not necessarily right away. All right? These are not in order. I don't think you need to put the 10 books on your bucket list in any sort of order, because they're all, you know, in the fullness of time, right? Some of them I have on the shelf, some I don't. I have this one, if I can lift it. A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. This is the apparently amazing novel from India that was published, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I think more like 20 years ago, 1993 perhaps. And I am daunted by its girth, by its doorstoppishness, so it's going to be, in one of those someday books. And when I moved to Tokyo a dozen years ago from Vancouver, I didn't bring very many books. I brought about 20 books, and one of them that I lugged all the way here, and, I don't know if I'm ever leaving Tokyo, but it's quite possibly one that I'm going to lug to the next place that I take up residence, is this huge 2-volume box set of a biography of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, A Life by Michael Burlingame. It's Michael Burlingame, right? Yeah. And it's a gorgeous thing, and I got really interested in him when I read The Team of Rivals. That was before I saw the movie. I didn't think the movie was that great, actually, but I loved Doris Kearns Goodwin's A Team of Rivals, and it just got me so fascinated by Lincoln. I mean, I was always vaguely interested in him. He's a great man, except for the atrocity he perpetrated on the Native Americans, but which Doris Kearns Goodwin didn't tell me about. But I want to read this, so this is on my bucket list. I would also like to read East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Everybody says you must read it, and I agree. I must. I want to. I very much want to, but, it's never felt urgent, so it's on my bucket list. Similarly, I think it's 18th century novel, Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Sterne. I heard about it when I was an undergrad. My professor, who has remained a good friend over the years, Kathy, she raved about it. She didn't teach it. It wasn't on her syllabus, and I maybe was grateful at the time because it's quite a big, thick book. Cousin of Always Doing and I vaguely discussed doing a buddy read or something of it, and I'm not sure that that's ever going to happen, but it's on my bucket list. I hear for its day, it was experimental fiction, and it almost anticipated postmodern fiction. I think I remember that right, so yeah, I've always been curious about it. Thomas Mann's The Magic Mountain has been on my bucket list for years. The last time I chatted with anybody about it was when I had Matthew from Mayberry Book Club come on my channel for a Zoom chat, and he loved it, and he urged me to get to it, so that put it back on my radar, but it's never really been off my radar. I think it was Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventures that told me it's a very philosophical novel, and that made me kind of pull back from, I don't really like philosophy, but I've been really curious about this novel. The premise of it sounds great, and Matthew kind of talked me down from that nervousness about the philosophical. I think he explained that it's very much grounded in narrative, so as long as it's grounded in narrative and doesn't get all woo-woo, I should be okay. And then I can finally read Britta Bowler's book, her historical novel about Thomas Mann, because I feel like I need to read something by Thomas Mann other than Death in Venice, which I don't remember anything about, except that I knew just how he felt, but I wasn't going for the 12-year-olds, but I often feel like I'm going to keel over in lust with all the beautiful 22-year-olds walking around Tokyo. But I digress. Britta Bowler's book, The Decision, I'm not including it in this list because she's a woman, and when a book is written by a woman, I'm much more likely to read it tomorrow or next month or next year. This is one of the few, I think maybe the only, one of the few books by women, because again, like I just said, right, I don't need to repeat myself, but this one intimidates me for some other reason, some unknown reason, and that is The Last Samurai by Helen DeWitt. It's supposed to be amazing. Adam and Britta, I think they buddy read it a couple of years ago and loved it, and then I heard, what did I hear about it? Oh, it somehow got Kurosawa's Seven Samurai in it. The kid is kind of this, is he a prodigy, a genius? And he grew up watching Kurosawa's Seven Samurai on a hypnotizing loop. I don't know how intrinsic Japanese film is, like Kurosawa, but anything I've ever seen, any video clip or anything I've ever heard about Kurosawa, I would rather stick pins in my eyes than watch those kinds of Japanese movies. So maybe that's what's kind of scared me off. So that's why this is one of the very few novels by women on the bucket list. And this one, I think, has been on my bucket list, but it actually came to the fore because I can't remember if it was Lukash or myself that suggested that we buddy read it, and then I got cold feet and pulled back because I think this is just too big of a book to buddy read. So it's gone back on my bucket list, and that is the Russian novel by Mikhail Sholokhov, And Quiet Flows the Dawn. Translated from the Russian by Stephen Gary. This is apparently an abridged version, and there is no full version in English translation that's any good, apparently. This is supposed to be an excellent translation, and it's, if it's abridged, that's still long enough for me. Thank you very much. It's tiny print and almost 600 pages, and I can't do a buddy read of that long of a book. I did it once with Britta. We did pretty well with The Tale of Genji, but no, I think 300 or 400 pages is my limit for a buddy read. So yeah, this is something I want to read by myself, and then talked with. Oh, I think I forgot to mention Lukash's channel name, because I've had a mental block about it, because he changed it about a year ago, and I've never kept it in my head, but I think it's A Cruel Reader's Thesis, which doesn't fit Lukash at all, the cruel part anyway. And this is the only work of queer literature that I'm putting on here, because, queer literature tends to go to the top of my pile, so I don't need to put it on a rainy day list or a bucket list. But this one is, 600 or 700 pages. I think it was published a dozen years ago in Ireland, and it's a historical novel set during the time of the Easter Uprising, I believe. At Swim, Two Boys by Jamie O'Neill. I had a humongous softcover copy of it sitting on my shelf for years when I lived in Canada, and I remember that one day a bird flew in the window, perched on it, and pooped on the top of it. So I didn't want to read that particular copy, but I do want to read it, and I need to put it on a bucket list so that I don't forget. And it's a gay love story between two, I think they're teenager boys at the beginning of the story. And finally, I have two book series. The first one is a series of Canadian classics by the much beloved Canadian writer. She originated in Manitoba, I believe, so she's a Western Canadian writer, Margaret Lawrence, and she wrote a cycle of novels called the MANIAC sequence, informally titled that, and it consists of 5 novels. I think one of them might be a short story collection. I think in order they are The Stone Angel, which I read when I was about 15. I was much too young to read it, but I remember liking it. A Jest of God, never read. The Fire Dwellers, never read. A Bird in the House, I studied it in a Western Canadian lit class as an undergrad. I believe it's short stories. I liked it. And The Diviners, which apparently some people say it's arguably her masterpiece. So that is on my bucket list. They were all published in maybe the 70s and 80s. She died in maybe the mid-80s, quite young, of cancer. And finally, the 12-volume series, Anthony Powell's A Dance to the Music of Time. I keep going back and forth about it because it's such a long, but each of the novels is 200 pages or less. That's my memory from what I've heard people say. And they were published between 1951 and 1975. There's 12 of them. I haven't read any of them. I know Anne from Beyond the Pages has read at least part of the series. Loved them. Knowing Anne, she's read them all twice. And the storyline, the setting, goes from 1921 to 1971. Interesting. Here they are in order. A Question of Upbringing, A Buyer's Market, The Acceptance World, At Lady Molly's, Casanova's Chinese Restaurant, The Kindly Ones, The Valley of Bones, The Soldier's Art, The Military Philosophers, Books Do Furnish a Room, Temporary Kings, and the last one, Hearing Secret Harmonies. I hear it's very literary and it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's on my bucket list. So that is my list of 10. 2 series, 8 novels. Now comes the fun part, boys and girls. This is an optional prompt for the tag. If you do this tag, and I hope you will do it, you don't have to do this part, but I think most of you will want to because it's kind of fun. I am going to invite all of you watching, my subscribers, anybody who just kind of stumbled in here, you don't have to be my subscriber, you can be a fellow booktuber, whatever, to vote in a poll. I'll put a link to a Google poll that I've just created on the 2 books from the list of 10. 2 are series, 8 are standalone novels, that you would like to see me read by the end of 2022. And I will do my best to read them. So please only vote for 2. I guess you could only vote for 1 if you only could think of one, but I think on this Google form, this Google poll, it's possible to vote for more than 2, but that I think just kind of would skew the data. So just vote for the 2 on that list that you would like to see me read. And this is my commitment to you. If the top 2 are novels, standalone novels, I definitely commit to reading them by the end of 2022. that will be easy for me to do. I may get started on them before the end of this year, 2021, but probably not. If one or both of the top 2 choices by the time the poll closes, and let's say this poll will be open for 1 month from the day the video is published. Okay, I'll put in show notes what the day is. But if one or both of the top 2 choices are the book series, Margaret Lawrence's Manaoka sequence, or Anthony Powell's A Dance to the Music of Time, I'm not going to realistically commit to reading the entire, especially if I have to tackle both of them, if that's what you all vote for me to read. Not to finish the entire series in a year, but to finish at least half of the series in the year and commit to reading the rest of them followed by the following year or something, okay? But if it's 2 novels, 2 standalone novels, of course I will commit to reading them in 2022. So this is going to be fun. So the link is in the show notes. Please vote, and we'll see what it comes up with. And I'll do a quick survey results video. Hopefully it'll be only 2 minutes long when the data is ready to be shared. Now comes the fun part, and I actually didn't plan this. I usually have it all planned out. So if I forgot you, it's because I have a mental block about you because I'm obsessed with you. My love for you is that strong. So just do the tag anyway, okay? But so randomly, I'm going to tag... Well, let's just go with the fact that I've tagged pretty much everybody, and it's an open tag, and the list of the people I specifically tagged is in the show notes. Thanks for watching.